us as a generation now, we got to put exercise in there. We got to put
do,
self-care
yeah.
because we're not out there working in the farms and doing the physical labor and out in the sun. Like, we have to artificially create that good health for ourselves in order to be able to tackle and do all this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And I would say, actually, as I thought about it, the one thing that I think we have to be careful of in this world is the speed of information, and most notably false, misleading information. Because we are in an age where information, I mean, an opinion on Twitter becomes facts after 1 million likes almost immediately, right? And so we have to, I think, if there's one thing we need to do is, as a society, figure out a better way to ensure that that reliable information is being promulgated and produced. That's a difficult problem right now. It really is.
It really is, and it plays right into your book, which I think, your future book, which we saw very highlighted is, we were all fed a certain way to think and believe, and some of us, maybe got on board, maybe didn't, but now that there's, evidence coming out in other areas, the people that were very solid in one opinion, because of their identity and their ego, they cannot, even though it makes sense, like, they're like seeing it, but they're like, I can't do that because I'm going to lose a part of my...
Well, our politics is probably and I'm going to have to address this when I write about it. Our politics is probably the most visceral example of this, both 100%. Left and right. When you look at both sides they're getting more polarized, and to be part of one side or another, it's almost a requirement that you adopt a certain mentality. You have to be
100%, all the way down.
I mean, I have now for many years called myself politically homeless because where I was. Or where I was is not what it was before, and where I want to be is not necessarily. I'm just like, where is the point where I can actually have some middle ground opinions? I don't want to put on the red suit, and I don't want to put on the blue suit, right? I can't, because I don't like all the aspects of the blue suit, and I don't like all the aspects of the red suit.
Right.
But our politics, because of the dissemination of information, is getting more and more polarized. I think our biggest, probably one of our biggest, most important challenges today in this country is to figure out a way that we can get rid of our extremities and start. And I don't know what that looks like. It might be like a multi-party system or something like that. Who knows? But something that allows more voices to be heard. So what I think is the majority of middle people can actually start speaking without fear of getting canceled.
100%.
Because right now, to speak out in a reasonable way against either of the two polarities is a dangerous proposition. It really is.
100%. And I mean, it goes even further. It's vax, anti-vax.
Yes.
It's, they've, and when I say they, I mean, the media people have, this is by design to divide us. It's the oldest tactic in the book, divide and conquer.
Well,
it's working very well.
And I'll further than that, it's also the oldest tactic in the book for sales. It's fear sells.
Right.
If I can make you angry, right? It's almost, I don't watch the news anymore because it's almost impossible to watch any news network without starting to feel angry. Yeah. That's their point. They want to make you angry. I mean, a perfect example of this polarity, just going back and forth, is the anti-vax and vax. The classic anti-vaxxers throughout COVID became vaxxers, and the classic vaxxers became anti-vaxxers. I mean, and since then it's just shifted, right? Yeah. Because no one knows. Everybody's trying to align their identity with whatever position they feel like that represents them the most, and it's quite insane.
It is, really because it's not black and white. There's no right and wrong. It's a personal. All of it is a personal choice, and you shouldn't be put in a camp or whatever it is because you have an opinion in a certain way. We should be allowed to have opinions.
We should.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech. And I would love to see us as a society start to eschew these extremist positions and really make both sides, red and blue, the minority, and have the majority be like, hey, listen, we're tired of this stuff, right? I want to talk about how this over here on the blue side makes sense, and this over here on the red side makes sense. Let's talk about how we work together. It seems like that's how it used to be, and I think the proliferation of social media and the ability for people to go down these rabbit holes, and of course the algorithms that take us down those rabbit holes, it's gotten tough.
Right.
So.
Well, and that's what you're talking about with like the information that we're being fed.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we are being fed that, and so
Yeah.
it really takes time to sort of decipher and make your own opinions about things and try to get the true data.
Yeah. The idea is, I tell my boys, and they do a good job. When you're on YouTube, just make sure if you find yourself researching something, just once in a while type in the exact opposite, because you kick off the algorithm, right? And you get the algorithm confused there because it doesn't know exactly what you're looking for. So if you find your YouTube algorithms taking down the highly familiar lanes, just be careful, beware, because those algorithms are designed to do that. And so I'd say now my YouTube algorithm, the only thing that you'll see consistently is probably anything on comedians and anything on Metallica.
Yes.
And other than that, you'll see both sides of everything else. So yeah.
I love that. I'm a huge heavy metal fan.
Yeah.
I've seen Metallica many times.
Yeah,
That just made me so happy right now. They're from the Bay Area.
They're awesome.
Yeah.
Favorite band.
Yeah, well, and they just transcended times. You know, they changed, they grew, they became it. They're the best.
They really are. Yeah, they really are.
Yeah. Can't wait to go see another show there. Have you been to a concert?
Several. In fact, the last one we went to, my brother and I went to the Hardwire tour.
Oh, wow.
And it was a big stadium up in Philly, and we actually got floor passes, but we made our way all the way up. So like, we were right there with James and crew. It was just awesome.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not a big concert guy, but I'll always make exceptions for Metallica. So.
Nice. You know, they're playing up here in Aftershock in October.
I tell you, if I were in the Bay Area, I'd probably see. Although last concert, this recent one where they played 2 shows and there were different songs for both shows.
Oh, nice.
I can't remember. It was like their 40th anniversary or something. I mean, the tickets were like $2,000 a piece. They were insane. You know. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be the ideal thing. They were like in small venues, right? And they sold out right. That would be like amazing to see them in a small venue, not those giant stadiums.
Right, yeah.
But anyway, we get it. I think we're happy with it.
Yes. Yeah.
What kind of hormones do you think that releases? Like for me, if I'm like getting pumped up, like I put on heavy metal. Like that puts me in the mood. That gets me going.
Yeah.
I love that. I don't know how other people don't operate that way.
Yeah, it's all preference. What I recognize about myself as I again did self-exploration is I'm really quite fascinated with what I call precision aggression. It's one of the reasons why I loved being a Navy SEAL, because the ability to really be hyper aggressive but also hyper focused. I mean, you're literally every time you squeeze a trigger that you know exactly where that bullet's going, and it's like a surgeon. It's very surgical. I love that, and what I recognize is that's why I love Metallica. When you look at their music, especially from the Kill 'Em All up through Justice, and again I love all their stuff, but the Kill 'Em All up through Justice, every single chug, I mean every single E chord you can hear. It's done with such precision that that's what fires me up, and that's not like other heavy metal bands. I mean, you know, other heavy metal bands, like even the big 4 like Slayer and Anthrax, a lot of their songs are really open E chord kind of chugging, you know, and so it sounds to the ear, even to me, a little bit messy. I still like the heaviness, but what I love the most is when they close that, you know, they do the palm muting, and they close that E chord, and it's just like, and of course everybody who knows metal knows that Hetfield's one of the fastest downpickers in history, and you know, and so you hear every single thing, and it seems like every single chug, every single note, every single chord has been placed very precisely, and I think that's what just fires me up. It really does.
I wonder if that's the same for me, because I love it,
Yeah.
and that's what when I'm working out, that's what I want to hear. When I'm getting fired up or something, that's what I want to hear. Pantera was my number one favorite, and I think you're the same. You know, he had Dimebag had like this like scream that nobody else had, and it just resonated with me.
Totally, and it's funny because like my youngest son, I love bluegrass, old country too. My youngest son plays the banjo. He loves the banjo. He has a very classical palate. You know, he loves banjo, old soul, yeah. But he plays the banjo, and like I play Metallica sometimes in the car. He's like, "Dad, this is stressing me out," you know, and I can tell. So I don't play it with him. I mean, I know what that means for him. For his physiology, it just doesn't. So I get it when people, you know, some people just don't like it, but you and I do. So.
Yeah, and I tried to impose it as much as I could on my kids, and neither one of them listen to it now. But when they're in the car, I'm like, I'm bringing you back to your roots.
Yes, that's right. Well, they will appreciate that later. I know, because I love John Denver, and one of the reasons why I love John Denver is my dad always played John Denver. when we're in the car with them. So some of that will some of that will stick, and they'll think of Mom when they hear James screaming.
Yeah, classic rock, which is so weird for me to hear it on a classic rock channel.
That's
I'm like,
right, yeah.
what?
I know.
Okay, now you know you're old when.
That's right. Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I love that. Oh gosh, I'm so excited to hear that about you.
Well, here's another thing. So one of our the people who work with us for the attributes, and he's a wonderful guy named Wagner down in Brazil. He and I have been working on a ton of stuff. We're putting together the content. Brilliant dude. He found out we've had so many meetings, but in conversation we found out we both like Metallica. So the next meeting he shows me he has the original vinyl.
Wow.
Version of Kill 'Em All,
wow,
Master, Ride the Lightning, and Justice vinyl, and he still listens to them, And
so he's actually using them. They're not just in a case.
He's still using them. He still has the
amazing.
original vinyl. So I was like, man, that's cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And I heard the vinyl. You hear stuff that you don't hear on the cassette tape or the CD.
That's right. I've heard vinyl
is
the premier way to listen to anything.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I
can't have a record player in my car. So.
Facts. So I'm going to totally work us in reverse because I think our listeners need to know what the difference between attributes and skills are.
Okay.
And leadership, just to, before we end off, so they can understand why they need your book, like we needed your book.
Yeah, absolutely. So really, ultimately, when I was looking at performance, I needed to break down. I was in a position, I was running training for one of our very specialized SEAL commands, where we take really very well qualified, experienced SEALs, put them through our 9-month process. We get about a 50% attrition. We didn't at the time have a great explanation as to why guys weren't making it. And so what I was forced to do was say, okay, what are we actually looking at when we look at performance? Because when I thought about my time in the teams, even up to that point, basic SEAL training, BUDS, basic underwater demolition / SEAL training, it's 6 months long. It's in San Diego. Some of the toughest training on the planet. You spend hundreds of hours running around with boats on your head and hundreds of hours of exercising with 300-pound telephone poles and freezing in the surf zone. And I reflected and I said, well, I'd at that point done hundreds of combat missions in Iraq and Afghanistan and thousands of training evolutions. Never on one did I ever carry a heavy boat on my head or a 300-pound telephone pole on my shoulder. So what they were doing this to us in SEAL training wasn't in fact training us to be Navy SEALs. They weren't teaching us to shoot and dive and scuba and blow things up. They were putting us in these environments to tease out these hidden qualities. And so these hidden qualities are attributes. And so I had to recognize the difference between skills and attributes. And so really just a baseline, skills are not inherent to our nature. So in other words, we're taught how to do these skills, ride a bike, throw a ball, shoot a gun. And we can be trained to do those things. They direct our behavior in known specific environments. Here's how and when to ride a bike, throw a ball, shoot a gun. And then because they're visible, they're very easy to assess, measure, and test. You can see how well anybody does any one of those things. And you put scores around them and stats around them. This is why when we're picking teams, a lot of times we're seduced by skills because you can see them and you can, score them.
Sure, you want the best shooter.
You want the best shooter, or best point guard, or best marking person, or whatever. What skills don't tell us is how we're going to show up in stress, challenge, and uncertainty, because in an unknown environment, it's very difficult to apply a known skill. So that's when we lean on attributes. Attributes, on the other hand, are inherent to our nature. All of us are born with levels of situational awareness, patience, and adaptability. Now, you can develop them over time and experience, but you can see levels of this in very small children. So there's a nature and nurture element to attributes. Attributes don't direct our behavior, they inform our behavior. They tell us how we're going to show up to a situation. So in other words, my son's levels of resilience and adaptability and perseverance informed the way he showed up when he was learning the skill of riding a bike, and he was falling off a dozen times doing so. And then because they're hidden in the background, they're very difficult to see, and that means they're very difficult to assess, measure, and test. You can see them the most viscerally and visually and viscerally during times of stress, challenge, and uncertainty. When someone is in that unknown, uncertain, challenging environment, these attributes start to come to the fore, which is what made the SEAL training I was running, or even basic SEAL training, such a great laboratory. But ultimately, when we think about our performance in both everyday life and in stress, challenge, and uncertainty, if we don't think about our attributes, we're missing half, if not more, of the game. And we're thinking about our teams and creating high-performing teams. High-performing teams are such because they interact.